Hey everyone! Today we're going to make a little dog cowl for Mac. This video is a tutorial video and it has a full written pattern associated with it, which you can find on Ravelry, and I'll include a link to that in the description box of this video below. Alright, let's get started. We're going to need 3 measurements. The first, really to find the size for the dog cowl, is the circumference of Mac's neck. And I'm going to measure a little bit higher up. So he is about 26 to 27 centimeters. The next measurement is the length of his chest, and that will tell us how long to make the front panel. So his chest is about 6 centimeters long from the bottom, the nape of the neck, to the bottom of his chest there. Good boy. And to get the third measurement, as you can see here, you need to put your dog's harness on. So you're gonna have to measure from the nape of your dog's neck to the D-ring right here. Mac's harness is about 9 centimeters. To make your dog cowl, you're going to need a bulky weight yarn. I'm going to be using Sandnes Garn's Borsted Alpaca today in this color Jelly Bean Green. The gauge for this pattern is 18 stitches in 2x2 ribbing for a total of 10 centimeters or 4 inches. And row gauge really doesn't matter for this pattern. This pattern comes in 10 different sizes, which you can check in the written pattern. I'm going to be making a size 3 for Mac today just based on the measurements that we just took. You're also going to need circular 5mm needles, and the length of the cable varies. I include my recommendations depending on what size you're making in the pattern directly. I'm going to be using these 23 centimeters or 9-inch circular needles, which are very tiny, but you can also use circular needles that have a very long cable and use the magic loop method, or if you're making a smaller size, you can also use double pointed needles. You're also going to need a tape measure to measure your dog, something to cut with, a couple of stitch holders, a tapestry needle to weave in your ends, and optionally a stitch holder or a piece of scrap yarn. So for the size 3, I'm going to cast on 48 stitches. I'm going to use the long tail cast on method today, so I need to leave a nice long tail. And we can begin casting on just like this. The first one is always a bit fiddly. There's 1 stitch, 2 stitches. I'm just going to continue until I have 48 stitches on my needles. And I now have 48 stitches on my needles. So we're now going to join the work in the round to work the neck ribbing portion. And before we do that, we just want to make sure that none of our stitches are twisted. So you're going to take a marker and place it just before you join to mark the beginning of the round. So we're going to begin by working in 2x2 ribbing, starting with 2 knit stitches. So it's a bit difficult to see the individual stitches because they're so fuzzy, but this is the first one right here. We're going to insert our needle and knit that first one, and then again knit the second one, and then purl these next 2. And we're just going to continue that pattern all the way around until we reach the end. I'm just reaching the end of that round now. You should end with 2 purl stitches. And that is what your first round should look like. And I'm going to continue working in 2x2 ribbing, knit 2, purl 2, until my work measures 10 centimeters, which is the length of the neck portion of the cowl. So you can either work the recommended length described in the pattern, or whatever length you would prefer. So I will see you when I've finished the neck section. All right, we've now finished our 14 centimeters, which you can see right here. And I put my work on some stitch holders just so we can try it on Mac. Good boy. Oh, good boy. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Good job, buddy. It looks great. All right, we'll now split for the front panel, which will be the length of his chest. I can take that off you, buddy. Good boy. So to do that, on your last round of 2x2 ribbing for the neck portion, you want to stop 1 stitch before your beginning of the round marker. We're going to take two more markers, and we're going to first mark 1 stitch before the beginning of the round marker where we stopped, just like this. And we're going to take a second one and we're going to count 15 stitches from the beginning of the round marker. This is for size 3. For the other sizes, you can check how many stitches you need to count in the written pattern. So 2, 4. For all the sizes, you should always land right in between 2 purl stitches like you see here. So we're going to place that marker there, just like this. So to work our first row of the front panel, we're going to do a slip slip knit. So to do that, you're going to slip the first stitch, that last stitch in the round, slip that stitch knitwise like this, and you can now remove the beginning of the round marker because we're now going to work flat. Slip that second stitch knitwise, and you can take your needle and insert it through the front loop of both of those stitches, just like this, and knit those two together. And that has made a left-leaning decrease. And then we're going to just keep working in 2x2 ribbing until we reach the last 2 stitches before that other marker that we just placed. So this one is a knit, purl, purl. All right, we've reached the last 2 stitches, as you can see here. And we're going to knit both of those 2 together to create a right-leaning decrease. So just like this. And that is the first row of your front panel. So for the remaining stitches here, we're going to leave those unworked. And if you prefer, you can put them on a piece of scrap yarn or stitch holders, but I'm just going to leave them to rest and continue working back and forth between our 2 markers. So we're now going to turn our work and work back along that row. So since we're now working in rows, we're still going to work in 2x2 ribbing, but now we're going to start with purl stitches, as you can see here. So we're going to purl 2, knit 2 until the end of the row. I'm just reaching the end of this row, and we're going to end with 2 purls as well. And that's pretty much it, guys. The only thing we're going to do differently, besides working in 2x2 ribbing, is on the right side, on the side facing outward, where you start with knit stitches. For the first and the last stitch of the right side facing row, we're going to slip the first and the last stitch knitwise. And this will just create a bit of a cleaner edge on the panels. So I'll show you here. We're going to slip this stitch knitwise and then work in 2x2 ribbing until the last stitch. We've now reached that last stitch, as you can see here, and we're going to slip that last stitch knitwise like that. And then for the wrong side, the side that begins with purls, you'll see that the working yarn is 1 stitch back, which that's fine, that's exactly what you want. But we're still going to work in purl 2, knit 2 normally. So purl 2, knit 2 until the end. Just reaching the end of the wrong side row now. And that is everything, guys. So I'm going to keep working in 2x2 ribbing, just slipping those first and last stitches on the right side row until I have the length of Mac's chest, and you can work whatever the length of your dog's chest is. And I'll see you back when I finish my 6 centimeters. I've now finished my 6 centimeters for the front panel, which is looking pretty tiny at the moment, but okay, so now we're ready to bind off the front panel. And we're going to use a very standard bind off. We're going to knit the knits and purl the purls as we bind off. So we have 2 knit stitches to start. So we can knit the first one, knit the second one, and then pull that back loop over the front loop to bind off 1. And then we've got 2 purl stitches next. So we're going to purl 1, again slip that back loop over the front loop, and just keep following that same pattern until the end of knit the knits, purl the purls. All right, and as we slip that last stitch over the front stitch, we can pull out and leave a nice tail so we can weave in the tail later. All right, and that is what it should look like when you've finished your front panel. I'm not going to try it on Mac at the moment because he's actually asleep, but we can get started on the back panel a while. So we're going to work the back panel in the exact same way as the front one. The only difference being is we just have to attach our yarn. So we're going to initially start with a slip slip knit. So for these 2 stitches, we're going to slip the first one knitwise, and then do the exact same thing, slip the second stitch knitwise, and then we're going to take our left needle and insert it into the front loops of both of those stitches like this. And then you can take your yarn like this, just hook it around your needle, and then knit those 2 stitches together. So in this movement, we've attached our yarn and we've decreased 1 with a left leaning decrease. So we're just going to work until we have 2 stitches left in this row in 2x2 ribbing. So the next one is a knit. So we're going to knit 1 and then purl 2, and then just keep working in that knit 2, purl 2 until we reach the last 2 stitches. Once we reach the last 2 stitches, we're going to create a right leaning decrease by knitting those 2 together. And just like this. And that's it. We've now worked the first row of our back panel, and for the size 3 at least, you should have 30 stitches on your needles because we've decreased by 2 on either side. So just like the front panel, we're going to work back along that row, starting with 2 purl stitches. So purl 2, knit 2 until the end. All right, and I'm just finishing up that row with 2 purl stitches. And that little tail we might have to pull tight. All right, and for just like the front panel, we're going to begin slipping the first and last stitches of the right side row, the side that's facing out. That first stitch, we're going to slip it knitwise, and then just keep working in 2x2 ribbing, knit the knits, purl the purls until you reach that last stitch. And as I reach that last stitch in the row, I'm going to slip it knitwise. And again, we're going to turn our work, and the working yarn is going to be 1 stitch back, which is normal, and we're going to just keep working in 2x2 ribbing back and forth until this panel measures the length of measurement 3, which should be the distance between the nape of your dog's neck and the harness D-ring, so we can create a little harness hole. For Mac, I believe that was 9 centimeters. So I'm going to just keep working in this until I reach 9 centimeters. You're going to want to finish with a row 2 as listed in the pattern, or just the wrong side. So we're going to finish with a wrong side row so we can begin working the harness hole on a right side row. I've now finished my 9 centimeters for the beginning of my back panel, and we finished on a wrong side row here. So we're going to work the harness hole on the right side, and to do that I'm going to take a stitch marker, and for the size 3 I'm going to count 14 stitches from the beginning of the row, and this will vary depending on what size you're making. I'm going to place that stitch marker right here, and regardless of what size you're making, that should be between 2 knit stitches and 2 purl stitches. And we're going to bind off these 2 purl stitches here. That's what the stitch marker is demarcating, to create a little hole for us to clip our leash to the harness. So I'm going to begin working this row the same way we have been, by slipping the first stitch and then knit. All right, and I'm just about to reach that stitch marker here. So I worked these 2 knit stitches, and I'm going to remove the stitch marker but now I know that I need to bind off these 2 purl stitches here. So I'm going to do that in pattern. I'm going to purl the first stitch, purl the second stitch, and then slip that back loop over the front one. And then we've only bound one off so far, so we just have to knit that next stitch, and then again slip that back loop over the front one. And we've now bound off 2 stitches, which you can see that little gap here. And we're going to continue working in pattern until the end of the row. Alright, we've now finished that first row, and as you can see there is a bit of a gap here with, in this case, 4 ribs on either side of the harness hole here. We're now going to work in pattern until that gap, that harness hole. We're going to cast on 2 stitches and then finish out the row normally. I'm now reaching that gap, which you can see pretty clearly here. You can really use any cast on you would prefer, but I'm going to use the backward loop cast on method just to cast on 2 stitches in that hole. So there's 1 and 2. All right, and we can keep working that row normally until the end. And that's just about everything, guys. We've now created the harness hole right here, which will become even clearer as we continue to work the back panel. You can make the back panel as long or short as you like. I'd recommend just trying it on your dog as you go. For Mac, he's quite a long dog, so I'm going to create quite a long back panel. But yeah, it's going to be exactly the same as the front. Work until your back panel has reached your preferred length, bind off in pattern, give it a soak, and it's good to go. I'll meet up with you at the end once I've finished my back panel woven in my ends, and we'll try it on Mac. All right, and this is the finished product. Let's see what Mac thinks. Looks pretty good. It's very long. I love the little front panel, it's very sweet. But it's very easy to put on because there's no leg holes or anything like that. As you can see, there's the little harness hole is here. And once we clip that harness hole, this all should stay in place very nicely.